What's up, YouTube? It's Coach Cory. Today, I want to propose some balance changes for Brawl Stars. It's been a while since we've had any sort of balance changes, and personally, I don't think this meta is a very balanced meta. There's a lot of brawlers who are used in a lot of different game modes. There's a few brawlers who are used in a lot of different game modes, and I want to change that up. Also, Supercell's on vacation. Hey, look, guys, you don't have to worry about this new balance change. I got you covered. Just do these. But of course, guys, let me know your thoughts on what changes you think should happen as well. So let's start out with some nerfs. And some brawlers are really, really strong, and they definitely need some nerfs. I think one of the most obvious ones is Poco. Poco is just so strong right now. Is basically needed in a couple different game modes, is just very, very strong, super overpowered, got a lot of buffs in a row, and is insanely strong in gem grab, is really strong anywhere else as well. You can pretty much use him in every single game, but you're even seeing Poco used in Heist, which is sort of crazy. It's not a game mode you would typically think he's very good in, but just because his stats are so strong, he's able to be used almost anywhere. So with that in mind, I think he needs some nerfs. Where I think he should nerf, I would give him a 10% reload speed nerf. He's just really strong, and this is going to be a good way to bounce him, in my opinion. I like his range buff because that allows him to compete with a lot of other brawlers. He was almost not quite unusable before, but it made him hard to compete with a lot of other brawlers just because of his range. Keeping his range, I like that, but I want to give him a 10% reload speed nerf, and this is going to affect him a lot because he's going to deal way less damage because a lot of times he's hitting multiple people and he's not going to be doing this often, so he's going to be getting his super less as well. So not only is he going to be dealing less damage, but he's going to be having less supers throughout the course of a game, and that's obviously another big strength of Poco is his super with his healing. So this would be a good nerf for Poco. But what about Spike? Spike is also super strong. He's in a lot of different game modes, gem grab, heist, bounty, brawl ball, you name it, Spike is there. Spike and Poco, top two brawlers. But Spike, I actually don't want to give Spike a huge nerf. I do really like Spike, and he's a hard brawler to bounce, in my opinion, because his health is really, really low. So one of the two things you can do is you can nerf his reload speed, but I don't think I want to do that. His reload isn't the fastest anyways. I would nerf his damage. He has the ability to deal a lot of damage, especially with his main attack. So I would give his main attack maybe a 5 to 8% damage nerf, and this would make Spike a lot more balanced. It would make him a little bit more similar to Ricochet, as Ricochet is one of those brawlers, is a high damage brawler, but low health, and you can sort of counter him in that way because he can be hard or easy to kill-ish. So with Spike, I would give him a damage nerf. You could potentially nerf him in another way, like make it his super be a little bit harder to charge. I think that could be another potential good nerf for Spike. Those would probably be one of the two things I would do for Spike. Okay, now I have two other brawlers I want to see nerfed. The first one is Tara. Tara, to me, I like Tara, but her super is just way too strong. Her super needs to be nerfed in some way. Now, you can either make it take longer to charge, but I'm not sure I would like that so much. One thing I think would be an interesting way to nerf her super would be to make it faster. And now hear me out. What I think this would do is if you make her super pull people in faster, it allows them to recover sooner and attack Tara and whoever is attacking that brawler even faster. So make that pull happen even stronger, a stronger pull, a faster pull. Now this would be an interesting way to nerf Tara because you could sort of get a faster kill, but the brawler could respond faster as well, which can go a small amount of ways. The other thing I think should happen with Tara's super is you nerf the range on it, so it can't pull people in from as far away. To me, that's probably the bigger nerf that's needed, as Tara's super is just so strong, and it's game-changing in so many different ways, and it just makes Tara really strong in a lot of different game modes. But I wouldn't do a huge nerf to Tara. I think part of the reason Tara is really good is slightly the meta as well. So maybe nerf to some other brawlers, a small nerf to Tara would be a good balance. The other nerf I want to see happen is Nita. I would like to see Nita nerf. She's just really strong in a lot of different game modes. Gem grab, brawl ball. You can even use her in heist as well. A lot of different showdown modes. Nita, very, very strong. Used in a lot of stuff. So I think she needs some sort of nerf. Now, I think there's two ways you can do it. I would either nerf her health. She has a very high amount of health. Or I would nerf her reload speed. So if you're nerfing her reload speed, she's going to be getting her bear less as well. But I do think that is probably the best way to nerf Nita, because I think her health is really sort of key to allowing her to fight a lot of these high health like tanks. It allows Nita to compete with tanks, and it allows Nita to get within range to hit a lot of other people, as Nita doesn't have a very long range. So I think having that high health is sort of key for Nita. But I think those would be the two ways I would nerf Nita. It's either a reload speed nerf, like maybe 5 to 10%, 5 to 8%, something like that, or a small health nerf, like a 5% health nerf. That's how I would nerf Nita. Okay, what about buffs? Let's go over some brawlers I really think need some buffs. Whoa. Or excuse the hiccup. But let's go over some buffs. And what about Mortis? I know a lot of people probably want a Mortis buff, and I mean, to be honest, you look at my overall ranking video, I have Mortis at number 20, so it's definitely not very strong right now. But I'm actually not going to buff Mortis. I don't think Mortis should get a buff. I actually really like Mortis's stats. I think one thing that's hurting him a little bit is there is some lag sometimes, which can make it hard for him to dash. Also, an auto aim nerf would be good, right? But I think these 4 brawlers that I talked about nerfing, all those 4 brawlers are all pretty good versus Mortis. So changing the meta a little bit is going to give Mortis an indirect buff. So I think I would like to see how Mortis is after nerfing those 4 brawlers. All of them are strong versus Mortis, almost unquestionably. Maybe Spike not as much, but he's still pretty good versus Mortis. Poco, Nita, Tar, definitely good versus Mortis. All those guys are getting nerfed, so let's see how Mortis is after that before we give Mortis any other sort of buffs. But let's go over what other buffs I would give. What about El Primo? El Primo has been bad for a long time, and he's gotten buffs recently too, and he's still really bad. I mean, the problem with El Primo, honestly, is his range. It's really, really hard for him to get within range of other brawlers to be able to either just get any sort of damage. And I mean, sure, once he gets a little bit, he can build up his super, but even then, once he gets within range, he doesn't deal a devastating amount of damage, which in my opinion, if his range is going to be that short, his damage should be devastating, and it's really not. I mean, all the other tanks deal better damage than than El Primo. Not Shelly, Bull, Daryl, Frank, all of them deal better damage than El Primo, and it's almost unquestionably. And if you're going to have that short range, I think you either got to do 2 things. One, you make it easier for him to get within range. You increase his move speed. Now, I don't think I want to go this route because that's sort of a dangerous route to go, having an 8,000 health brawler having the fastest move speed in the game. I don't know about that. I would increase his damage. He needs to have devastating damage if his range is going to be that short. Yes, he has a super that can allow him to jump on people, but it's hard for him to get that. I mean, a lot of times with El Primo, he's constantly giving the enemy their supers because his range is so short. It's so hard for him to get within range. And even then, it's hard for him to get a lot of hits too because he does 1 hit, 2 hit, 3 hit, and then maybe they're like moved because you can easily sort of dodge El Primo's attacks at least a little bit. Maybe you can't get out of range once he's in range, but you can dodge attacks so he's not hitting all of them. El Primo, I would give him either somewhere like an 8 to 10% damage buff, and I really think that's needed versus him, especially too with Shelly in the meta. Shelly is a really strong El Primo counter. It's going to be even just with any sort of Shelly in the meta, any sort of map El Primo's good on, you easily might see Shelly. So I definitely think El Primo needs a big buff. Okay, what about Pam? Pam too isn't very strong right now. And Pam has never really been a super strong brawler. Pam has never been a brawler that was used in a lot of different game modes. Always a very utility brawler. Good in Robo Rumble and usually pretty good in Gem Grab. Right now, not really seeing daylight because of Poco though. Poco Nerf would bring Pam back to relevance in Gem Grab, but not really anywhere else. So what should happen to Pam to make her relevant elsewhere? To me, I think Pam should get a buff. I think she deserves it. And I would give her a damage buff. That is, to me, the easiest way to be relevant in other game modes is the ability to get kills, because that is what translates in every single game mode. Otherwise, it's sort of like having a unique power or super that makes you useful in other game modes, like Pam and Gem Grab her healing. That's what makes her unique for Gem Grab. So if you increase her damage, that's going to make her viable elsewhere. I'd give her not a huge buff, though. Maybe just like a 5% damage buff. I wouldn't want to make her too strong in Gem Grab, but maybe this would make her a little bit more balanced in other game modes. It probably wouldn't make her strong, but maybe it would make her usable, and I think that is the goal with any sort of balance change. Okay, now what about this brawler, Bo? Now I did have Bo at 10 in my overall ranking video, and in retrospect that was way too high. I probably should have had Bo around 14 or 15 for overall ranking. But I do think Bo deserves a buff. I mean, yeah, Bo 2 also hasn't been ever super strong in any sort of meta. And his best game mode is Bounty. Well, maybe Showdown if you're counting Feast or Famine Thousand Lakes. But otherwise, it's Bounty like Snake Prairie, Outlaw Camp, other sort of grassy maps Bo is really strong in because of his star power. But if you don't have his star power, Bo is really weak. I had him in my star power ranking or over free-to-play ranking video. I had Bo at 20. If you don't have Bo's star power, he's really bad. So with that in mind, I think I would give Bo a buff that makes him not as reliant as his star power and also maybe viable in other game modes as well. For Bo, I would give an increase that's going to allow him to do more damage, but I'm not going to increase his damage. What I'm doing, I want to increase the attack speed of his main projectile. So his attack is going to be landing faster. It's going to be a faster attack. I'm giving it a pretty big buff, a 10 to 15% projectile speed buff for his main attack. I really think Bo needs that. His attack is so inconsistent. Now, maybe it's an interesting way to use Bo, how if you're strafing left or right, his attack acts differently. But to me, you need to make his attack more inconsistent. In a lot of ways, Bo, he sort of struggles until he gets his mines. And, I mean, one of his strengths is that he's a high-health, long-range brawler, but his damage is so poor, a lot of times he's just not very good. It makes him really inconsistent to use. You sort of have to rely on enemies not seeing the mines and running into his mines, which is just... I mean, his damage is just very inconsistent. I think if you could make his attack faster, he'll be able to get more damage more consistently, and that would be a good buff to Bo for free-to-play and non-free-to-play players. Okay, now Penny. I really think Penny needs a buff. I think there's a couple ways you could buff her. You could either, one, make her projectile a little bit wider, increase the size of her projectile. It is, honestly, a little bit hard to consistently hit shots with Penny's projectile. Now, this could be a big damage increaser, but it's going to obviously depend on how much you increase the size. I think it would be much better gameplay-wise if you increase the size. Probably for new players, it's really hard for them to consistently hit shots. They probably have to rely purely on auto-aim a lot of times, especially for any sort of new player. Penny can be hard to aim. Definitely a very narrow shot. Now, this would also mean her secondary effect of her main attack would hit more as well, just because you're getting more hits. But I think that would be a decent buff for Penny. But that's not the buff I want to propose to her. To me, I think Penny's star power needs to either get a big buff or be completely reworked. And I really think it should get a rework. So guys, if you have any ideas for a good rework, definitely put it down in the comments. I would love to hear it. Because her star power is just, I mean, it's bad. It's also not a good one for Penny in my opinion. Because you think about it, her turret has a range of 12 tiles, easily the longest in the game of anything that shoots. So you're going to be putting it in places where it's going to have, I mean, it's going to be away from the combat. That's going to be the point of it. You want to be able to take advantage of the long range, the really long range of her cannon. So you're going to be placing it away from the enemy. But her star power is whenever her cannon dies, it explodes and releases some bombs in a small radius around her cannon. But of course, a lot of people are going to be killing it away from the cannon. So either one, you need to increase the range of her star power explosion, make it be able to go out further. Now, if you're going to be doing that, you probably need to add a couple more bombs as well, because it's only 6 bombs. It shoots randomly. And if you're increasing the range, there's even less chance it's going to hit someone, of course, right? But I do think that could be one way you buff her star power, is make it, you know, right now I think it's a max of like 6 tiles away that it goes, or 5 tiles away. Maybe you make it be able to go up to 8 tiles away, or 9 tiles away. Something like that where it actually has a chance of hitting someone. Now that could be one way. Or you could just increase the amount of bombs. I really think you either have to, though, make it go a further range for star power, or you just have to completely rework it, because otherwise I just don't think it fits with Penny. Of course, it is, you know, fits to her theme in that bombs explode, it's come out of her turret, it's, you know, somewhere in that regard, but it just doesn't work for her cannon. It doesn't fit for her turret. It's a really long range thing. Having something that impacts in a short, like around the turret, just doesn't fit with Penny. So let me know if you guys have any good reworks for Penny's star power, or what you think should happen to Penny. But alright guys, those are my proposed balance changes. That's what I think should happen. Poco Nerf, Spike Nerf, Tarras Nerf, Nita Nerf, and then Pam Buff, El Primo Buff, Penny Buff, and a Bo Buff as well. So guys, let me know what balance changes you think should happen. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later.